Okay. And that is connected, so we can try doing this now. We can try. All right. To my alarm, in spite of what the song might have said, to my alarm, when we got here this evening, my lesson for tonight is not here. I have no idea what happened to it, other than I don't know if it didn't make it onto my thumb drive or what happened, but fortunately this lesson actually comes from the House to House School of Evangelism. So I thought, hey, I'll just go out and download it. Well, I couldn't get my computer to stay connected to the internet long enough for it to pull that. That's the reason I disappeared. I've got enough signal in the office that I could get connected. Had to reboot and everything. But here we are, and I'm going to have to try to wing it a little bit as we go through this because all of my notes are on wherever that other version is. So we're going to have to just kind of wing it here tonight. Bear with me. It'll be a little different tonight. But I want us to note, we've been talking about this School of Evangelism curriculum that we are engaged in doing. We've had several lessons from it already. We're in our Bible study. We've talked about it a good bit. We're going to start doing our morning service. It'll be a sermon like what we did this morning where we were studying from the booklets. Then we'll have other sessions in the evening that will be a little less formal. And the reason I'm down here, it's more like a class tonight rather than being like a full-blown sermon. But trying to introduce this to everyone. I know I've heard several of you say this, and it's certainly been true for the elders and myself as well, that this is a little overwhelming. There's a lot to it. There is a lot to it. And trying to get your mind wrapped around it can feel a little overwhelming. Understand that what we're going to do is we're implementing this little bits at a time, bite-sized chunks. Does that make sense? We're not going to put this all out there at once trying to throw things out. What we have to do is build an infrastructure. And we were talking about this earlier today, and I likened it to trying to carry freight across a railroad. Well, you don't carry freight across a railroad until you got the railroad track built, right? And so what we're trying to do is build the railroad track right now, put the infrastructure in place. Once you have the infrastructure in place, then things can move much more smoothly. So I'm going to ask that you be patient, have a little forbearance as we go, but I want to first of all start by looking at the model. And you can see the model up here. It has 6 parts. We start with contacts. That's the first place on the we'll call it on the journey through this system. We start with contacts. We will have to have many more contacts than we'll actually ever have people that we work with. And the reason for that is this. People on your list, well, let's go back. We talked about this in our Bible study this morning. I want to bring it back up tonight. Remember me telling you, make sure you have this with you every time you come. Who's got their card? This is where we start. This is where we start. One of the places that we start. There are multiple places that we have that feed us contacts. But every one of you know people that you know are not Christians. You know people who need to have the gospel shared with them. And you've probably thought for many, many years, I wish I knew some way of doing this. Well, here it is. We're going to work on doing this, and what we'll do is we'll take people from this card that each of you have. So let's assume just for a moment that there are 100 of us that are doing this with this congregation, just 100. Okay, I know it's not that number, but we're going to throw that number out there because it's easy for me to do the math. The math is not my strong suit, so bear with me. If you have 10 people on your card and there are 100 of us, how many contacts are there? There are 1,000. I'm glad somebody else can do the math. I didn't have to do it that way. There are 1,000 that we will have. Now, one of the things that we know, Jesus tells us, many are called, but few are chosen, right? Many are called, but few are chosen. You got to start with the many, though, to get to the few. The next step on this list, it's called prospects. I don't like that term. I'll just tell you, I don't like that term. You know what it sounds to me like? It sounds to me like multi-level marketing. It sounds like we're running around in cheap leisure suits and two-tone shoes trying to sell used cars. I don't like the term prospects, but that's the term that's here. But what they are people that we are going to share our love with, that we are going to take from where we started with the contacts, and we're going to send them compassion cards. We're going to strive to help them if they need meals, if they need, whatever it is that we can do to show love, to show that we care. As we mentioned in our class this morning, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? So what we're wanting to do then is show our love to them, and hopefully what that will do is enable us over time to get to the next step, which is Bible studies. How many people do you suppose you are able to convert, that you're able to get them to the next step, which would be baptisms, without a Bible study? Anybody? Slim to none, right? So what we're looking at here is taking things from one step to the next, taking people from one step to the next to get to the Bible studies. Now, here's what I want you to know. We talked about this morning. There are 3 of these, right? Booklet 1, booklet 2, booklet 3. I want to ask you a question. If you can get them to a Bible study, what do you think the percentage is of people that go through this Bible study from start to end and come out the end and are baptized? What do you think that percentage is?
Probably 80 to 90%.
You were starting out on the low side. You hit right on the money. It's 90%. If we can get them to a Bible study, based on the statistics of what they're seeing with the School of Evangelism, 90% of the people that go through this study obey the gospel. Is that powerful? I want you to think about this just for a moment. 9 out of every 10 people that go through this study and go from end to end obey the gospel. How many of you have ever done anything with the stock market? All right, some of you have, okay. If I told you you have a 90% chance with this stock of making money, would you buy it? You'd be foolish not to, right? So that's what we're looking at here, is trying to get through this. And then what we see when we have the baptisms, what result from the baptisms? New converts, right? And as a result of the new converts, what do we have from the standpoint of the church? We have growth. We have a growing church. How many of you, let me ask you this, I want you to be honest. How many of you at any point in the last year, 2 years, 5 years, have prayed for Grundy Street to grow? I would think everybody's hand goes up here, right? We've all prayed for that. We have all prayed for that. What it requires that we do is that we work together to make it happen. Now, like I said a little while ago, some of this feels like multi-level marketing. I get it. What I'm going to ask you to do, though, is please trust the process. We're going to talk about a few of these things this evening to kind of get you a little more. What we're striving to do here now is make this operational. We've been talking about it for a little while. We started doing a few things here and there, but what we're actually trying to do at this point is start ramping up and making it operational. So, as you can see, these little steps that we have here, they have check boxes underneath them. It's kind of hard to read them from here. It's hard for me to read them even looking on my screen, so I know it's hard for you guys to read them out there. But what I want you to know is that there's an explanation here of what we're seeing and what kinds of things happen in each of those steps. So when we're talking about contacts, for example, all the different ways, I mean, there's a blue million of ways in this program to develop contacts. Let me explain to you, when I've said this a few times here recently, and I'm going to say it again tonight. Everything that we do, what did we just finish doing earlier this week? VBS. I was going to say, I know some of you are still tired from it, but you do remember what we were doing earlier this week, right? We had VBS. How many people came through these doors and were here that are not members here, that live in this area? Those are potential contacts, right? How many people do we strive to help with the clothing closet, with the food pantry? Benevolent work that we do, we need to be thinking about as we do those things, how can we use that for evangelistic efforts? Here's another thing. You remember back the first Sunday in March of this year, we had a Friends and Family Day. Guess what? We're having another one at the end of August. I'm gonna challenge you. We had close to 250 people. We had close to 250 people for our first one in March. Nobody believed it was possible. Am I right? How many of you thought we would have 250 people here? I want to see the hands of how many people actually thought we'd have 250 people. We have one. All right. Okay. Why not 300? Why not 300? Can we do 300? Can we get 300 people in here? I think we can. And think about this now. All those people who are coming in from Tullahoma, Coffee County, Moore County, Franklin County, Bedford County. How many of those people don't have a church home? Those are possible contacts. You see, even doing things like our Friends and Family Day, it needs to be, how can we make this work? Let me think how we can make this work to be useful for our evangelistic efforts. Am I making sense? And so that's the things that we do for making contacts. And I'm going to tell you, they also have house-to-house, heart-to-heart. We're not doing that yet, but we will at some point in the future. Part of the house-to-house, heart-to-heart mailers going out also is their new mover program. Also not doing that. Tell you things that we are doing. Here are things that we are going to be doing. We're going to be implementing a visitor program. John Duncan kind of kicked that off today. What we do with that, when we have visitors who come in, Don't let them leave without taking them out to eat, because when you take them out to eat, what do you have the opportunity to do? You have the opportunity to have a conversation, right? You have an opportunity to build relationships. And so we're going to actually have a program. Vince, get ready. You know, you've been working on some of this stuff, people coming in the front door. We've got things that we're going to need to put together around that to make sure that we don't have visitors come in and walk back out that door and we've not had time to try to build a relationship with them, especially if they're from this area. Ways that we can build contacts. Next thing up there, the prospects. I know I said I don't like that, but we're going to have to use that term. That's what's there. But understand what we're doing then. We're taking those many contacts that we get and we're distilling that list down into people that we can reach out to and build on. So one of the things that we're going to talk about here as we go on through this a little bit is what we'll be doing with that information. How many of you remember, first of all, I think that there are some of you that are here tonight that weren't here for some of the evangelism seminar sessions. If I say the term compassion cards, does everybody know what I'm talking about? If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's okay. Raise your hand. I want to make sure I don't lose anybody. I don't leave anybody behind. Okay. What the compassion cards are, I've got, if you go into the minister's office, there's a shelf in there and it's got all these different cards that are different types of cards. You got sick cards, you got new mover cards, you've got visitor cards, you've got for our people who are members here that haven't been coming. We've got a whole host of different types of cards. What we're going to be doing as a congregation is we are going to be sending cards out. There is no one here who does not have a part to play. Ace, Aiden, Ellie, I'm even talking about you. We want you to send cards. Would you like to send cards to people? Encourage them? Yeah, because you want to know a little something that's very. So let me ask you a question. If you were struggling, you've had a hard time, there's something going on in your life that you're struggling. What happens if you get a card from a child? What happens? What does that do? Does that lift your day? These young people can reach people in ways that we adults can't. Right? You see that little kid's scrawl come in on a card. Hope you get to feeling better. Oh, does your heart melt? Yes. So what we're looking at doing is identifying people and then working with them to try to get them to the next step, which is Bible studies. And then we're going to have some people who are able to lead Bible studies. Not everybody is cut out to be a Bible teacher. I know that. And even though we're going through this on Sunday mornings, it's not about everybody becoming a Bible teacher. Let me tell you a little story from my past. Most of you know Big John was a Marine, right? Everybody knows I was in the Marine Corps. You want to know something that was really interesting about the Marine Corps? Before I went to my MOS training, my military occupational specialty, I was Field Artillery Fire Direction Control. Before I got to go to that school and learn how to do field artillery, you know what I had to do first? I had to learn how to be a Marine rifleman. I had to be an infantryman. The Marine Corps puts an emphasis that everybody should understand what it is to be in the infantry. Not because we'll ever be in the infantry, but because that's who we support. And there have been situations where it all went to pieces and those guys in the back have to pick up a rifle and be an infantryman for a short time, right? But everybody here, whether you ever lead a Bible study or not, it's important that you understand what those who are doing it, that's our infantry here, right? The people who are leading the Bible studies, you need to understand what it is that they're doing. You need to understand why they're doing it. And oh, by the way, some of you might decide, you know what, I can actually do this. I can actually do this. And if that happens, praise God, to him be the glory, right? Now let's move forward a little bit. So here's the card that we're talking about. This is the personal level. This is where we start. One of many areas that we start from in developing those contacts. Laura, did I answer your question on the compassion cards? Okay. And so then we go from that to this. This is a contact card. Now I'm going to tell you, this has a lot of information on it that we're not going to be asking you for. John Duncan is, I think you're going to be our contact coordinator, correct? Is that, okay. So John's going to be our contact coordinator. And so what will happen is when we start getting people off of this list that we're going to start making contact with, that we'll pass those names and information to the teams that are coordinating our compassion cards, for example. He's going to get the information from you. Now, he's got a scaled-down version of this. He's got sheets of paper in there that what he'll do is he'll hand it out to you, what we're looking for, name, first name, last name, looking for their telephone number, their address, email address. Do they go to church somewhere? And if so, where? You know, are they a member of a denomination? Are they a member of the church and they have just not been going? Member of the Lord's church and just haven't been going? Anything, and there's a section for comments for you to write any pertinent information that you can think of in there. And you'll give that back to John, and John will actually then create one of these cards for that person. That person, he'll then keep up with that information, all the stuff that's on here. You know, when did we have Bible studies with them? You know, any kind of follow-up that's gone out for them. That information gets put on this. This is the prospect list. We're going to call this our love list. Remember I told you I don't like prospect lists. I'm not the only one that doesn't like that. This is going to be our love list, and this is going to be public here in the building where any member can see it, and it's going to be who we are reaching out to. It's going to be who we are striving to reach out to. And so we're going to have information on this about the people that we're doing that with. And oh, by the way, we have 4 ladies here who are going to be coordinating our compassion cards going out. They're going to be working with that. You see this board over here? This will be changing because we've already got this information in the lobby, right, in the foyer. So all this information that you see right here, you'll get out there. This will become our accountability board. What's our accountability board? How many cards have we sent out? How many visitors have we had? How many contacts do we have? How many people who are prospects? How many baptisms have we had? And we're going to keep track of that because we all need to see that. If we've got nothing but goose eggs over there, what does that tell us? We need to get after it. So that is to remind us of where we're doing, where we are, how we're doing. Moving forward a little bit. So all of these things you can see here fit together to work through this process and work on getting people to Bible studies. Next thing we talked about briefly, we talked about the visitors. I want to give you a pretty impressive statistic here. How many, and I'm not making this up, I hope I'm quoting it correctly, but I'm not making it up. I'm trying not to make it up anyway. How many of the people who we get to Bible studies do you think started out as visitors? Anybody got a guess? 8 out of 10. 80% of the people who we get to Bible studies visited here. That's where the School of Evangelism sees this across as a general rule across all the churches that are enrolled in this program and are doing this, and there's something like 350 now, I think is the number, that are currently enrolled. The people who we get to Bible studies, 80% of them started from our pews. They came and visited with us. So I want you to think about how many people we have visiting with us. Pam, do we have any idea how many people visited today? We don't have that number yet. I can tell you last week we had 6 people that visited. That weren't, when I say visit, I don't mean that it's people from, family members that are coming in from somewhere else and visiting. I'm talking about locals who aren't going to church anywhere or are going to a denomination, and we had them visit here, 6 of them. Out of 6, based on the numbers that we're talking about here, if we were to have pursued doing things with them, we would have seen 4 or 5 of them. We could have got to a Bible study, right? Based on those numbers, if we pursue that. So what I want us to understand, visitors, it's important that we develop that we pursue that we engage in that with them. Now, another thing, you can see this little bitty card here, it's inside there. As we start training on these, there are several different, what they call training cards that go with these. So in some of these sessions, we're going to be passing out these cards for you to have and hold on to, because you can see up here, visitors, I can barely read it. I can't read it there. Let's see if I can read it from here. Can't read it from here real well. So the steps with this, we greet, we give them a gift bag, we get the contact card, and then they end up on the visitor prospect list. And we start sending compassion cards to them. We follow up with them. And I'm going to skip through this. This is house to house, heart to heart. Same thing with the new movers. We're skipping through that. Skipping through door knocking. Next thing, you can see here, invitation cards. Elders, I have reached out to Austin, I can't think of his last name, at house to house, heart to heart, to look at getting invitation cards, what it will cost, and see what we would need to do to get started with this. Let me explain how this works. Invitation cards. Very similar in concept to these invitations that we've been sending out for our special events. Only this isn't for special events, it's for everything. You remember how in the invitation card you would go in the inside and you would put your name, invited by so-and-so? On the back of these invitation cards, there's a slot for you to write, or a line for you to write your name on there that you invited them. You're going to get 10 of these a month for you to hand out to people. Use them. If you take them home and put them in the round file, or if you take them home and put them on the counter and don't ever use them, how much good do they do? I don't have statistics on this, but I do know that this has been quite effective at the congregations that have implemented it. It has our information on the card, has a picture. This right here is the East Ridge Church that's in this example here down in Chattanooga. Well, it'll have a picture of our building. It'll have our times. It'll have our contact information. Here's our address. Here's our telephone number. All of that kind of information. And it'll have our service times on there. And you give it to somebody. Give it to the server who is waiting on you at lunch. Give it to somebody that you know that comes by to do deliveries. You know, whoever the UPS guy is or the FedEx guy coming by and leaving stuff at your house, give it to them. There's so many ways of using this, and you'll get 10 a month. Matter of fact, if we're doing real well with it, we might give out more, right? So it's a way to get people to come and visit. And remember what the success rate is for visitors in getting them to Bible studies? 80%, right? So if we can get them to come visit, we've got a pretty good chance that they're interested. They've shown interest already. That's the point. They already show that they are interested. They came. If somebody comes to your house, you invite them to your house, and they come, what do you think? This person is interested in coming to my house. They're interested in knowing more about me. Or maybe it's a family member. And hey, I still have this member of my family. They actually came to my house. And we'll have, again, a training session that goes with this. We talked earlier about the VBS and how it is useful for developing contacts. What do we do most Octobers, long about Halloween? Trunk or treat. One of the things that we've got to think about as we're doing these kinds of events, how can we make this outward looking? How can we make this looking to the outside? What do we tend to do with these kinds of events? Things like trunk or treat, sometimes VBS, graduation banquets, any kind of benevolent work what do we tend to do? We do it for our members. We do it inward looking, right? Remember what I said earlier. We've got to change how we think. We've got to be thinking about how anything that we do, we can make it outward looking, that we can make it evangelistically minded, that we can have it to be focused on how can we use this to reach people who are lost. And I know that I would probably be, if I were sitting where you're sitting right now, thinking, everything? Seriously? Everything? Yeah, everything. And here's why. Why are we here? There's a number of reasons that we might give to that. Somebody will say, well, I'm here because somebody taught me the gospel, and I obeyed the gospel, and I became a Christian, and now I am a member of the Lord's church, okay? Was that something that you consider to be life-changing? Was that something you consider to be special? Was that something you consider to be of eternal value? And if the answer is not yes, then why are you here? And if the answer is yes, as it should be, don't you want to share that with other people? Don't you want others to experience that as well? Now, I'm going to go back on the thing that I use a lot here lately. What's our number one job? To get to heaven. What's our number two job? Take as many people with us as we can. And what do I know about number one if I'm not doing number two? It's not going to happen. It means we've got to change the way we think, right? We've got to change the way we think. Everything that we do needs to be geared toward winning souls. So, talking about the compassion cards. Lots of different cards here, but we send those for at least 3 to 4 weeks. We send at least 10 per prospect, per person on our love list. And we don't send them all at once. These ladies that are going to be overseeing the Compassion Card program, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be taking all the cards that we write for these people, and they're going to be spacing them out. Let's say we wrote 50 cards to one person. We're going to mail out, if we were doing all this in 1 week, we'd mail out 10 per day, right? We're actually going to spread it out a little bit. So understanding that they're going to get these, and the idea is that we're showing them that we love them and we care for them. Talked about the visitors, always eat. Some of this, I wish it were arranged in a little bit different order, and I had done some rearranging in the version that I had put together. Next thing, I'll tell you, Michelle and I, and I know she'll corroborate this because we talked about it on a number of occasions. We don't have a mansion, but we have a nice house. We built it 5 years ago. We built what we wanted. We built it so that if we don't get to go on vacation, it doesn't hurt too bad because we're happy where we are. You know, we're surrounded by woods. I found out what we've got isn't actually a porch, it's a veranda. We have a veranda. Ceiling fans out there, nice place to sit. Michelle loves to decorate. Has it really nice, pretty, very inviting. When we were building that, we underwent all kinds of challenges. And I'll tell you what I prayed for. I prayed for this. I prayed that the Lord would allow us to complete that so that I could use it for His glory. I prayed that we would be able to have Bible studies there. I'm going to tell you, He held up His end of the deal, but I haven't held up mine yet. But what I'll tell you, you don't have to have a gorgeous house. You don't have to have, what you have to have is a spirit and a sense of hospitality. You have to have a desire for people to be in your home and you sharing the gospel with them. And a lot of times that starts with a meal. Have them over. Hey, we're having a pot of chili tonight. You like chili? Or we're having spaghetti, or we're having bologna sandwiches. Whatever it is that you're doing, but invite them to be a part of that. I don't know about y'all, but country boy steak's pretty good sometimes, right? Bologna sandwiches. I'm getting some eyes from some of you. But the idea here is that we have that spirit of hospitality, using our homes as an evangelistic tool. How many of you ever thought of it that way? Some of you have. Somebody say something? Some of you have thought of that. Next thing, assuming that I get through this lesson this evening and Anderson doesn't have to finish it up next week, the topic that he'll be talking about next week will be our evangelism table. In the foyer, and I'm assuming we're going to do what John's idea is, which is to make it where you have to walk around it. You have no choice but to see our evangelism table in the lobby. It'll be out there in the foyer, right in the middle, and all of the materials that we're going to be providing for people to do Bible studies will be there. So let me ask you a question. If somebody in your life, if you were suddenly to stumble upon or manage to work out to do a Bible study with somebody, How many of you have the materials to do that? A few of you do. And I mean, if you're comfortable with it, what do you need to do a Bible study? You need a Bible. That's all you need, right? But how many of you would feel more comfortable using something like this? Okay. Do you have copies of it? Some of you do. You may have noticed in the corner out there, there are stacks of these books out there. You may have noticed that. You may not have noticed that. Chances are most of you haven't noticed that. But if we do this the way that John is suggesting, how many of you will notice it if you walk in the front door and you actually have to detour around the table because it's sitting right there in the middle? Will you know where they are then? Yes, you will. And it won't just be these things. Remember this morning I told you if you can't do 3 Bible studies, there's a study called Does It Matter, also written by Bobby Bates, that is designed for you to do a single study. Why would I have to do a single study? Well, the situation might be I'm going to do a study with someone who is terminally ill, and I don't know how much time they've got, and I don't know that I've got the time to do 3 studies. I want to do 1 study and make sure that I've reached them if I possibly can, right? So having something that has a single study, Does It Matter, is for that. What if I'm talking to someone who is a skeptic or an atheist, and I want to, first of all, reach them and convince them of the validity of the Scriptures, convince them that there really is, no kidding, there is a God, and that He loves us. There's a 3-part study for that called Believe the Bible. How many of you have ever heard of the Open Bible Study, Ivan Stewart? Anybody ever hear of that? Okay. We can have materials from there. See, it doesn't have to be just this. There's a book that's useful for people who are new converts called The Beginning of Our Confidence by David Farr. I used to use that for teaching new convert classes, but it's also excellent for people who you're trying to convert, to use as a study guide for Bible studies. So we want to have all these materials that we need to have for conducting these Bible studies available for everybody. Right now they're in my office. Guess what? That's not the place for them. They're in my office because there's not a place to put them otherwise yet. But there will be, because it does absolutely no good for them to be locked in there when you need it, right? None. And so they're not going to stay there. They're just there for the time being, but they will be moved to where they are available for anybody that needs to use them to do so. We've talked about this. We're in the midst of that training right now. Kitchen table Bible studies. This is having a Bible study in your house. Does it matter? Believe the Bible. We talked about that. Now, Juliet Meeks was baptized here a few weeks ago. How many of you were here for that? When was the last time before that you saw a baptism during a church service here? Been a minute, huh? So let me ask you a question. Having the opportunity to see that, what did that do for you? Who felt stoked when they saw that? Who felt pumped up when they saw that? Anybody not feel that way? If you didn't feel that way, do you have a pulse? This is why we're here, isn't it? These moments are precious. They are special, and we want to enjoy them as much as we can. But I'll tell you something else. How many of you, when Andy was baptized, you saw the video online? How many of you saw the pictures when Cindy was baptized? How did you feel about that? How many of you heard recently that Roger Johnson was baptized? How did you feel about that? Folks, that's 4 baptisms this year. That's 4. The suggested and what we've actually got in terms of goals for our congregation, you should have a goal of about 10% a year. About 10% a year, assuming 120 people, which we've been averaging that over the course of the first part of the year, roughly. What would, here's my math again, y'all help me out, but what would 1/10 of 120 be? 12. You know what our goal for the year is? 12. We've already hit, help me out on this, but I believe that's a third we've already hit. Am I right? That should stoke us up. That absolutely should have us pumped up and be excited. And it should make us want more, right? I don't know about y'all. You give me one donut, it's kind of like Lay's potato chips. No one can eat just one, right? I can't eat just one donut. You can tell by looking at me. That's what part of the problem is, right? We should feel that way about baptisms. We should feel that way about baptisms. One of the things that we want to do when someone obeys the gospel is we want to give them a Bible. We're going to have some of those on hand. Oh, by the way, I mentioned this morning. I'll mention it again. We've got Bibles also. If you get into a Bible study and you find out they don't have a Bible, we'll give them one. Do not let them tell you, well, I'd love to do a Bible study, but I don't have one. No problem, Ace, I got you one. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to use your name there. No problem, Sparky, I'll put it that way. No problem, Sparky, I got you covered. Ace is a word I used to use for just generic, here's your name, but I'll have to change that to Sparky for you, right? No problem, Sparky, I got you covered. Here's your Bible, right? We've got that covered. Congregational training. So let's go back to compassion cards for just a moment, because that's an area that everybody's going to be asked to participate. A lot of these things that we're talking about, you're not going to be asked to participate in everything that we do. You'll be asked to participate in some things that we do, but this area, the compassion card, we're going to ask everybody to participate in this. How many of you, when I say I want you to write a card to somebody, go, I'm not real good at that? Anybody feel that way? Okay. Guess what? We're going to have verbiage that you can use on your card. All you got to do is put it in your handwriting. Oh, sorry you've not been feeling well. Hope you feel better soon. Love, your name. Can you do that? Anybody here can do that. Everybody here can do that. But we will train you on anything that you're being asked to do. We're having training sessions for the ladies who are going to be doing the compassion cards. We've talked to them already. We'll be talking to them more. They're going to be helping us organize the congregation into groups. By the way, you're not going to have to write a card every week, but you will be asked to write cards every month. Can you do one week out of every month? Write a few cards? Yeah, we can all do that. But the idea then is all of the things that we're doing, whether it be to do compassion cards, whether it be to do the visitor teams events. You and I talked about visitor team kind of thing. We're going to need people to be door greeters. We're going to need people to be pew greeters. We're going to train you on how to do that. Those of you who are asked to do that. If you're asked to do anything with visitors, as far as putting together baskets to give them, we're going to train you on how to do that. There's going to be things that we talk through. Nobody's going to be asked to do something and just say, here it is, go figure it out. We may have to figure it out first, but we want to try to figure out, and it won't be that maybe, it may be when we start doing this, you may say, John, I'm going to tell you something, your idea, that ain't real good. Here's what I would recommend, and your idea may be better, and we might go with that, right? Or not John, it may be elders. Hey, you've asked me to do this, but it's not really all that great. Next thing I want to mention very briefly here, and I know we're out of time. Man, that clock wound up in a hurry. Our new converts, you may be asked to mentor them. What do I mean by that? Yeah, so let me ask you a question. When you were a new convert, and I've had people tell me, well, nobody did that when I was a new convert. Would you have liked to have had it? Would you have liked to have had a new convert class to help you learn things when you were first baptized? Would you have liked to have had someone pull you under their wing and say, I know you've just obeyed the gospel, but there's some things that you need to understand about what it means to be a Christian. Would you have liked for someone to reach out to you once or twice a week just to say, hey, how you doing? I know that you obeyed the gospel on Sunday. I know right now. So let me tell you what's going to happen. When someone obeys the gospel, until that point, Satan has had them, right? Till they obey the gospel, they're his. Now they've obeyed the gospel, and what's he going to do? He is going to start an all-out effort to destroy their faith, to win them back. And you know what's going to happen if we don't watch out for them? He's going to win. And so we need to close ranks as Christians around that person and ensure that they are being mentored. Most of this I can skip on through now. We're getting close to the end. So here's, you can see here there's a training schedule that Anderson and I are going to be following. It's really small, I realize, but we've got a schedule to follow. And we also have a checklist that as we complete some of these steps, we check that off. Now understand, this program is designed to be perpetual. This isn't something we're going to do for 3 months and then say, okay, we're done. This is a change of how we do things. This is a go-forward strategy for doing things for going forward from now on. Because what we want to do is become an evangelistic church. The things that we're doing as we implement them, if we keep doing them, what happens? We are an evangelistic church. And then there are roles that will be assigned. Now we're back to our model. What a challenge for us. This will not be easy. Is anything worthwhile really ever easy?
The more we do it, though, the easier it will become.
Yes, the more we do it, the easier it becomes. And so let me point out that what we're doing here is changing things fundamentally, and we're going back to fundamentals to do it. How many of you, realize for a lot of us, it's been a minute. Some of us, it's been a lot more recently. I'm looking at this row. How many of you remember being in kindergarten? Can you still remember being in kindergarten? How many of, and some of you maybe didn't start with kindergarten, you started with first grade. I know, so I'll go there. How many of you remember first grade? We'll go there. How many of you remember not being able to tie your shoes? And for most of us, that predates Velcro, right? So we had to run around with shoelaces hanging off, tripping over them. Was that traumatic, not knowing how to tie your shoes? It was for me, man. I was upset by that. I remember sometimes taking them off at nap time and getting the wrong shoe on the wrong foot, and you walk home and your shoes are sticking out sideways because you've got them on the wrong feet. But you learned, right? And now when you tie your shoes, how many of you think about what you've got to do step by step to tie your shoes? How many of you just do it? We just do it now, right? It's reflexive. It's automatic. It's muscle memory. The point I'm making is we can make evangelism to be the same way. But what do you have to do? Repeat it over and over and over and over and over again, right? But what's the end goal? To get to heaven and take as many people as I can with me. This evening, as we've laid these challenges out in front of you, as we've talked through this program and what it's going to take to make it operational, and I realize even now some of this is still at a very high level. We haven't gotten into the details yet in some of this. And I realize, as they say, the devil's in the details. There's a lot of detail that we've got to get into yet. And I realize that, as I said at the outset, some of this feels like multi-level marketing. Here's what I'll say is the difference, though. Multi-level marketing, what's the purpose? The purpose is so that the guy that's above you and 2 levels above you, 3 levels above you, doesn't have to work and can make all the money off of your efforts, right? That's really what the purpose of multi-level marketing is. I'll just be straight up with you. Sell all this, whether it's Amway, whether it's jewelry, whether it's purses, is to make the guy up the ladder money. He can go play golf all day while you're the one out hitting the pavement. That's not what this is for. What's this for? This is to take as many people as you can take with you to heaven, right? That's what the purpose of this. And what this is to get all of us mobilized as a single unit. I've used the illustration previously of being on an assembly line in a factory. Not everybody does everything on the line, right? You don't follow your piece down the line and put it together until you get a car on the end. You do your one little piece and it goes on and the next person does it. But at the end, what have you done? All of you together have made whatever it is that you're making. Well, what we're striving to make are disciples. We're striving to make new Christians. We're striving to make a bigger, stronger church. I'm going to tell you a conversation. John, I'm going to call you out here just for a second. John and I had a conversation late last year. As we were putting together our goals for this year, do you remember what the goal for growth is for Grundy Street this year? 50%. 50% of 110, where we started this year, 55. To get to 165 by the end of the year. John said, Big John, there's not a church in Coffee County that's ever grown by 50%. I said, yet. Grundy Street can be that church. Grundy Street can be that church. What do we have to do? You said it a minute ago, we got to get after it. We got to get after it. Tonight, if you are looking at this and you're overwhelmed, good. It means you've got a lick of sense because this is a lot. But how many of you also are excited by the thought of it? I'm seeing some hands go up. We're excited by this, and we should be. because we have an opportunity as a congregation to make a difference in this community. I'm going to tell you, conversation, Jeff, I'm going to steal something you said earlier today when I was talking to you, not just me, but some of the others as well. Jeff said, in not just Tullahoma, certainly true in Tullahoma, but in just about any town where the church exists, the best kept secret in that town is the church, the Lord's church, the Church of Christ. You know why it's the best kept secret? Because we ain't been talking about it enough. That's got to change. Amen? That's got to change. Tonight, are you committed to making that change? It may be that you need to make a different change. You may have never obeyed the gospel, and you need to do that tonight. It may be that tonight you've obeyed the gospel, but you haven't been putting your heart and your life into it. You need to rededicate yourself. It may be that is something that you need to do tonight before we leave. And if that's the case, why don't you come up and do that right now as together we stand as we sing.